there's a connection that happens because the guys that are overlooked are the guys that are often, like we were talking about with Kris Murray before, they play a certain way that sometimes gets underappreciated and overlooked.
Yeah.
And we believe that we can tell that story better than everybody because we believe in that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The Leave Your Legacy podcast is brought to you by Covenant Workplace Solutions. Covenant is a full-service workplace mental health and wellness partner, helping organizations across the country strengthen the lives of their employees and the families they go home to every day. Your employee assistance program should raise the bar, not simply check the box. And Storyline Multimedia. Storyline is an Iowa City-based media company that creates high-quality video, photo, and audio for local businesses. They produce a number of great podcasts, including this one. If you're interested in sharing your story, please contact them at storylinemultimedia.com. And remember, your story matters. Welcome to the Leave Your Legacy Show. I'm your host, Kenyon Murray, and we have a return guest today in Kyle McAlarney, but we have a new guest in Torrian Jones, both from Priority Sports. I would say that you guys are the engine that keeps everything running at Priority. You might not say that, but I say it because you get the guys in shape, you get them, working out so they can go back to their respective markets and have success. But I just want to welcome both you guys to the show today.
I appreciate that, man. It's great to be back, and it's great to see kind of how you operate on a daily basis here in person. So thanks for having me back.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is a long time running. We had this conversation in Vegas last year, and we kind of got deep at a dinner. Remember there we were celebrating Kris getting drafted and stuff, and really excited to get out here and just talk shop with you, man.
Yeah, it's all cool. I mean, coming to Iowa, it may not be too exciting, but come here for right reasons, and it's about basketball. This is a state that really loves that. But Torrian, I want you to go first. Just tell us a little bit about it because you recently joined Priority in the last year. So just give us a little bit of background on you and how you ended up at Priority.
Sure. Yeah. So similar to Kyle, I actually played at Notre Dame as well. So another Notre Dame guy, Notre Dame takeover happening at Priority Sports. But played there from 2000 to 04, chased it for a really brief time. I played in the G League and a couple USBL, CBA, all those old semi-pro ones that just dissolved. And kind of got right into on the side more so training kids and stuff like that with my uncle back home who also played Division I basketball at LaSalle back in the 80s. And I was working full time, at Merrill Lynch, but doing that, really trying to find my way back in.
Yeah.
Then finally made my way back to Notre Dame in 2014, actually working in an academic capacity with the student athletes there, doing work with, helping them balance school and life and things of that nature, doing radio broadcasts there and just doing a lot of outreach stuff in the community, working guys out whenever Coach Bray would let me and doing things of that nature. And that led to me getting an assistant coaching job at University of Delaware with one of my former teammates, Martin Inglesby, who graduated in 2001. Did that for 7 years, but kind of always knew that I wanted to be a little bit more specialized. And to be honest, as great as college coaching is, this is just my personal perspective on it. As you can see where it's gotten right now with the transfer portal and how, important recruiting is, and you're actually honestly on the road more than you with your players. I wanted to get a position that allowed me to be more hands-on, more deep dive with the guys that I was working with and really have almost a mentoring, opportunity, which is really one of my passions that I've always kind of really believed in it, whatever capacity, whether it's players or people around it and stuff like that. And, reached out to Kieran Pillar, another agent at Priority, and actually Kyle as well, because he had just gotten hired in 2020, doing the work he's doing now, starting from the training avenue and working that into full-time representation and stuff. And Kieran I had known for years, and I had known of Kyle in passing from different reasons, being East Coast guys. He actually ran a couple workouts for my cousin for an AAU program back east called the Jersey Shore Warriors. And pretty quickly, I kind of knew that there was pretty clear alignment with the company, you know what I mean? And, me and Kyle jumped on the phone to kind of talk. And 3 hours later, man, I'm all right, yeah, sign me up, man. I'll walk out there, you know what I mean? Just to work with a guy like him and, be attached to a company like Priority that I believe does things the right way and for the right reasons, and even just values the right kind of people, which for me was big too. If I was going to make a switch like that at 40 years old, I wanted to be with a company I could see myself retiring with, and that there was not only opportunity to grow personally, but like true alignment from the top down of what we stood for. And I found that out pretty quickly talking to Mark and Kieran and Kyle, and then obviously joining them last April and jumping right into the pre-draft with Kyle and working with guys like your sons, Kris more intimately because it was his draft cycle, but Keegan coming back and just everybody that we represent, man, just the kind of people that you just enjoy spending time with. And that for me is kind of everything, you know what I mean? So for how passionately I do what I do and how serious I take the opportunity that I have to impact these guys, I think it's important that, the messaging that I'm, delivering resonates and means something. Yeah. So, it just leads to so many avenues like what we're doing right now and getting a chance to talk and get to know a person like yourself that's just like, a rock star when it comes to like doing meaningful work. Yeah. I just, it just kind of keeps reassuring me and reinforcing the decision that I made to come on board a year and some change ago.
Oh, nice. Well, I know, Kyle, you were doing everything, by yourself. So, I mean, what has it meant to you to have Torrian come on board just from an efficiency standpoint and allowing you to do some different things too with your role?
Well, the business has changed too, right? With NIL, we represent more players every year now and earlier, and everybody wants the training, right? So everybody's coming for the training. And so the reality is it's not a role or it's not a position that I can't do it myself. Yeah. We had 14 guys this past pre-draft. That's 14 guys that from April till June you're in charge of, and not, and not in a sense where like, okay, you have like, you're in charge of them every single day. Yeah. Their whole schedule every single day, from their lifting schedule, PT schedule, could be massage, could be doctor's appointments. And of course, actual basketball workouts and then running the workouts. So it's not something so the business has changed. So that's the first thing. But Torrian mentioned it when we first started connecting on a level that's like, hey, like we have a need in our company for somebody like Torrian, and then getting to know him more. Kieran and I both felt that it was a no-brainer to bring him along for everything that he mentioned, his entire history, of course, so from coaching to working with the student athletes at Notre Dame to his playing career, and obviously the kind of person he is and the values that he has. Everything was aligned, and it's been a great year and a half. And our training in terms of, okay, you have the pre-draft piece, but we also work with veterans, and it's part of our representation is we take an active role in your career. Yeah. Part of that is training. Part of that is them having the ability to come back. We call it home, but to Chicago, and work with us, reconnect and everything. And that has grown significantly since he's come on because he's so good at what he does, and he's so good at connecting with players, and they really enjoy working with him. They get a lot out of it. And so it's been, I can go on and on, but it's been great. It's been awesome. It's been great. And we share a lot of similar values, and a lot of times our vision for workouts and what it means to actually help a player is aligned, and that really makes it enjoyable every single day.
That's awesome. So coming on board, has there been anything that kind of surprised you in working with these NBA level athletes?
Not so much, because I think that's the beauty of when you're in a space that fits you is that, like, we're in the people business, so it's always going to be like differentiating ways you have to find an ability to connect and things like that. But they're just people, and I think like sometimes like when you're people who aren't around the game to that level, they look at these people like they're like figures, like they're just not even human, and it's just like they're just people that go home to their families, have some of them wife and kids, all of them mothers, fathers, sisters, and the more that you can approach everything with that level of just kind of like, humility and groundedness, like they respect it when you don't come in in a fan perspective. They deal with that every single day of their lives for their entire lives, So the interacting with the players has been everything I had hoped it could be. If I could say anything, I would say it's been better than what I would have even expected. But again, it kind of comes back to the type of players that we recruit and bring on. They're just grounded, you know what I mean? Yeah. They're very humble, even though they're vicious competitors, and their work ethic is unbelievable. So in terms of the working directly with the guys, I think it's been everything I could have hoped for. That's nothing in that space has surprised me. the business itself, which is that's somewhat foreign to me, that I'm still continuing to learn all those perspectives of it and, understanding who's who in the team, front offices and things like that. Yeah. My head is still in certain ways spinning there, but that's expected when you're coming into a completely new network of individuals that you have to kind of meet and kind of make first impressions over and over and over again. And, at times, like, it's kind of it can be a transactional business in that way. Like, that kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily surprised me, but that takes some getting used to, because I'm definitely I'm about meaningful connections in every capacity. And if you don't got the guy they want, there's not a lot to talk about with some of these dudes in these front offices or whatever. And I understand it, like, time is money and those guys got to make a lot of rounds. So I'm not even saying it from a judgmental capacity, but that has been what I've had to find my rhythm with, because I ain't never had a conversation that wasn't, 10 miles deep. You know what I mean? So it's hard for me to just kind of get right to it and just kind of just go through the mode. That's the way I operate, So I've had to kind of tone that down, take my ego and emotions out of it when a guy ain't trying to wrap it up, So like that's probably been the biggest adjustment for me. But again, like I said, from the players that we recruit to not only them, but the families that they come from. I mean, every single interaction with guys that we've worked with has been unbelievable. And then the people that I work with in the office, not only Kyle and Kieran, as we mentioned, but obviously Mark as well, our entire marketing team, like everybody that touches any part of our business, man, they're just salt of the earth individuals that really want to work and, take a lot of pride in collaboration. So it felt very familiar coming from a coaching staff to priority, because I'm still like on a staff in a lot of ways where everybody really works hand in hand to kind of represent every client is represented by the entire company, not just your agent. Your agent is doing more of the hands-on day to day, but everybody, you walk into that office, it's going to take you about 20 minutes to get to Mark's office in the back. You know what I mean? Which is great. That makes you really feel like the old show Cheers, Yeah. Hey, Norm. It's like, it's that deal, So I love that, because I'm as you know and have seen, I'm a talker, you know what I mean? So I love to engage people to whatever level they're open to. No, go ahead, you good.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think that's what makes you so good, though. And I think it's always surprising, still to this day, with a lot of these NBA players, how hungry they are for some real conversation, connection, coaching, mentoring, advising, so hungry for it. Yeah. Because they don't get it a lot in the NBA. They don't get the communication from the front office, from the coaching staff. And they want that stuff. Yeah. And I think that's what kind of has been great with you. But I think that's, from my perspective, I think that's what makes you great.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I mean, with thinking about the business part, and that I was going to go a different way, but you really sparked something in me. So, obviously there's a huge influx of younger talent in the league. And then, like you were saying, with front offices, if the guy's not the guy, like, there's so much money that's involved now. And obviously with the new TV deal, $78 billion deal. There's a lot of money, and these players are going to be paid a lot of money. But I wanted to ask you, do you feel that it's that some of the younger players coming into the league, because of how things work in an organization, do you think that they have a tougher time making that adjustment? Because I know, with you guys, and I've seen other agencies, but I've obviously been in deeper with you guys, but I just feel like a lot of the kids that come into the league and they deal with it, they just don't have the support from the agent side, right? Or they didn't prep them to get ready for the adult part of the NBA. I think Kris and Keegan, fortunately, a little bit older, but they just kind of have a different way they move. But do you feel like some of the younger players are, maybe their development's getting hampered because of the business part of it, and then them not being prepared?
Absolutely, 100%. We talk about this topic almost daily internally in our office, because we believe that what separates us is the fact that we really try, as I mentioned before, to take an active role in your career, and to help build you as a person, to help build you as a young man, to be there for you every single step of the way with everything going on in your life. And part of that is being honest with the player up front about what really matters and what you're going to face coming in your career, which is a lot of adversity. And how do you get through that adversity? It's the same, and I told this at the clinic last night a bunch of times to the kids, the same things that you hear when you're a kid growing up about work ethic, being tough, listening to your coaches, having a standard of yourself, having a standard of excellence for yourself, for everything. Same things work in the NBA. And I think what's happened with NIL in particular as well, because these kids coming out of college have money.
Yeah.
They're paid. They got a lot. Like, they're well off, you know, and they weren't educated, ready for it. So I don't know who to put the blame on necessarily, but I certainly feel that they feel this sense of entitlement, maybe. They're not ready for that adversity that they're going to face in the NBA because they've been paid and treated as if they've already made it before they do anything professionally. Yeah. And then that first speed bump that comes along, they're not equipped emotionally from a maturity standpoint. And because their circle for so long has been kind of feeding them BS and propping them up and telling them what they want to hear instead of the truth, guys don't make it. They don't last. And even if they get drafted high, they'll get a second look, but by year 3, year 4, it starts to get really tough for them. So maturing off the court is critical, and I think that's what we pride ourselves on, at least, is not only identifying the kids who have similar values as us and who were raised in a similar fashion to at least what we believe to be, the right way. But we try and take an active role and help those guys and be honest with them from the beginning about all that stuff. But I certainly feel it's hurt.
And we'll stay here because, Torrian, I want to ask you, so do you feel because of NIL and this entitlement that you talked about, do you feel that maybe guys don't have the same type hunger? Because a lot of these kids, the reason they go, they want to go to college to get an education, but they all, ultimately want to play in the NBA. But now you got a guys like, oh, I can stay in college and get 2.5 when, maybe they're playing their 5th year or whatever it is. But do you feel like NIL is some way taking away some of that hunger from this next generation of basketball players?
Yeah, I mean, I do, just to put it plainly. I mean, it's a little bit of a loaded question, or even answer for that matter, because they deserve it. I think this is long 100%. Overdue. So I'm conflicted in how I want to feel about it. I don't want to be a hater. You know what I mean? We already got enough.
We're for the players, man.
We're for the players. And we want them to get what they deserve. But to Kyle's point, part of your development and maturation is being ready to have that money and knowing how to remain hungry when you got it. You know what I mean? Yep. And expecting a 18-year-old kid to have that understanding is a little unrealistic at times. So there's going to be some natural growing pains as this becomes more of a norm. Because again, not only NIL, but I would take it even a step further and just social media. When we came up playing, you might read about a dude in a magazine or something, but you didn't even know who the other top guys were like that. You went to an AAU, event, and it was oh, I remember my first time, Damian Wilkins, Gerald Wilkins' son. I didn't know who he was, and this dude is jumping over people and all that, So it's just and then even for myself, so now relative to him, I was kind of a nobody at the time. So even that thought of making it, you make it at 12 years old sometimes because you got a social media following and you just are recognized. There was a hunger to be seen, let alone make money that was just inherently a part of the journey. You know what I mean? And from my perspective, and, Mark brought me on because of my background, obviously working in, higher education and stuff like that from my academic side, but even just recruiting high school kids. So I had a network or whatever. It almost felt, I feel a little dirty even recruiting a high school sophomore or junior, because no matter what you say, no matter what kind of kid or family they are, the moment you introduce the thought of the NBA, the mindset changes. You know what I mean? And again, how could it not? You know what I'm saying? So to kind of circling back to your question, The hunger is different because they do have money. The hunger is different because they are nationally known well before they've truly made it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then a natural entitlement comes in unless every single person around them is keeping them grounded, which in most cases now, because there's money attached, there's a lot of hanger-ons, even more than, I mean, there's always been those folks in the periphery, but now there's more and more, and they're just like vultures, and like, let alone the other agents that are popping up left and right that are just internet, IG agents, we call them that.
Yeah.
Now that you don't have to be certified to represent and dip into this pot of money, everybody around them is saying whatever they have to say to be attached to them and try to like help them, but it's like help them help themselves in a lot of ways. So like, I feel for these young guys to a certain degree, and one of the things that when I was coaching in college that helped me connect even deeper, because I do come from a different era where coaching was just like, your coach say do this and you just do it. It wasn't like having to explain why you're doing X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
And you could very easily get caught up in like judging these guys for being the way that they are, or calling them quote unquote soft, or saying you're this or you're that. And it's like, I didn't come up in the social media. I don't know who I would be if I came up now. Right. So like, getting over myself for a second to recognize, like, no matter where this kid is at, it's my job as the adult in the room to meet them where they are, help them to know that I understand them, I see them first and foremost, in hopes of bringing them closer to some of the foundational principles that I believe are like old school that need to still be a part of how these guys think now, because there tends to be a bit of a rift between generations that, like, when you keep it real with somebody, you're like hating. And it's like, nah. Like, I know there's a little bit of that out there. There are some guys you see, former NBA players, that might talk about today's game in a way that comes off very almost jealous. You know what I mean? And it creates a little bit of a dissension amongst the generations. But I'm a firm believer that just, we all got OGs. We call, you know what I mean? I met Coach Walker last night, and like those people are important to your process. You know what I mean? Like, you need to prove yourself to those guys. Like, now again, they're not gatekeepers necessarily, but that was making it is when my OGs tell me I'm nice, now I made it. Like, forget what these rankings say, like, that dude right there, I know he been through it or whatever. So if he believes I'm doing things, then it's more like not even established, just doing things in a way that is respected by the generations before. Like, that's how the game grows the best, in my opinion. So I just think we have to continue as, now us being kind of OGs in the game, like finding a way to help these young people say, I see you, I'm going to adapt to the things that you're accustomed to and recognize what you go through daily, but you have to also recognize I have some value to bring as well. And like, if you can slightly shape your mind a little bit differently, you can maximize all this opportunity in front of you, but also still remain solid, and we call it be a purist in terms of why you're doing this.
Yeah.
And colleges can do better.
No question.
College basketball programs can do way better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's about it. They can. I don't think they do enough from an educational standpoint.
True.
And they've sort of wiped their hands from it now, because agents are involved. But they can do way better for sure.
Yeah, having a team, we've talked about just having the right team around you makes a huge difference. And that's been a lot of conversations I've had with, families, parents that may have a kid that's, playing Division I and wants to go to that next level. That's it's all about the team that you have around your kid. And there's a lot of parents or guardians or whatever they are to these kids that just don't have the background knowledge to be able to help through that, and then it makes them susceptible to getting picked off by people that just
without question.
So okay, we're gonna have to talk about this. So we got Keegan going into year 3, Kris going into year 2. What have you seen? And I'm going back to like start with Keegan. Like, where have you seen his biggest growth? I know it, I'm gonna stay out of it because as a dad, who's watched him, I'm just keep my, how I feel. But what do you see as like maybe 2 of the things that he's really improved on going into year 3?
I mean, Keegan's one of maybe the best athlete that I've had in the gym. And I say that because when I had him in the gym for pre-draft, he just picked up on he just knew how to communicate with his body, to like do new things, whether it's with the ball or new footwork or different finishes. And I was in the gym with Keegan a lot that those couple months because we had to basically put a bubble wrap around him because he was so highly ranked, and we couldn't get hurt, right? And he wasn't doing many workouts, as he did. I think he did 3, and they were individual ones. So anyway, I say that just to say that when I look back on when I first started watching film of Keegan, well, he couldn't shoot. And he was in his head when he was shooting, and because they weren't guarding him, if you remember, his freshman year at Iowa,
crazy,
they were not even guarding him. Yeah. I tell that to people, and it's the most obvious one, but it needs to be like talked about and respected, and given the credit it deserves. They were not guarding him his freshman year at Iowa.
Yeah,
shoot it, and then he breaks the all-time record for made threes in his rookie season. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. 2 years.
To go 2 years.
Yeah,
it's unreal.
So that's obviously the obvious one is just like we can talk about like physical traits, like his ability to just shoot the basketball.
Yeah.
And have I seen changes in his body? Absolutely.
He's 230 now.
Yeah,
like, dude, that's
for sure.
Ridiculous.
For sure. Yeah. I would like to see his handle be a little bit better right now.
Yeah.
I think his personality, he's every year, every game, maybe even, he's growing as a man, and that is affecting how he's playing on the court. And you see it this preseason, and we talked a little bit about it last night. He's finally not aggressive isn't the right word. He's asserting himself on the court, and he's actively seeking that out. So I think for Keegan, like that's the biggest thing and I think we're always going to be working on that with him, I think because he's a great dude. He's a great teammate, and he's quiet. Yeah. And so he wants to like look both ways before he crosses the street.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's a great way of putting it.
A couple times.
Yeah. Seriously.
And then be in the middle of the street and still be looking. But he's certainly taken steps in that area, and the further along he goes in that, man, the sky's the limit because of what I said before, because of his body awareness and how he can just pick up on things so quickly.
Yeah. Well, you came in with Kris. So, going into year 2, like what are some of the things that you've seen from working with him in the pre-draft process to now?
I mean, like we were talking off air about Kris, and like it's hard to almost pinpoint it because he just always has done everything right. You know what I mean? Like he's just like we said, what do you call Mr. Perfect? What do they call him? Mr. Perfect, what they call him in house there. And it's just like we always talk about just his ability to like, I don't know any other word to say it. Like it doesn't always look the most smooth in terms of how he gets to, but he just gets wherever he wants to get on the court, man. Like, and obviously he was a great shooter, at Iowa, and that's going to come without a doubt at the NBA level. But I just have always marveled at his just like in baseball, they call it being a 5-tooler. Like, I don't know what they're like. Kyle watches him a lot more closely than I do, but I don't know what the holes in this game are because he guards multiple positions. He's a great on-ball defender while he's also a great off-ball defender. He can shoot. He'll make the right pass and reads. You know what I mean? He'll drive it to the rack. He's always under control. And it just almost looks like he's not like trying. You know what I mean? It's a cool dynamic, and it's kind of his personality, but also like it's something, like you said, to be marveled at. Like I don't want to ever overlook something because you get accustomed to seeing it happen so not even effortlessly, because obviously like he puts a lot of work in to be the player that he is. But I love that about him. And we also were talking a little bit off air about like just the different like shots making, like the catch high, keep high stuff that we do a lot of work on. But it's not surprising because Kyle and I always would laugh about this. The way he shoots is just like no waste. You know what I mean? It's just like it's in his hand, it's gone. It's almost like, to use another lefty, like a Chris Mullin is shot where it's just like boom, it's just like gets it off, and like so like you already know his range is going to extend as soon as he kind of gets comfortable making when he makes that physical jump that Keegan has made with his body and stuff like that. And he's just going to be a guy that, like, you literally going to have to be touching him if you're guarding him off the ball, because, like, you're not going to be able to help because he needs no time to get it off. He's big and he doesn't have to bring it down at all. You know what I mean? So I would say with him, like, he's going through that similar process as Keegan of just, like, continuing to just assert himself on the game even more and more, as opposed to just doing what exactly is right every time, because you got to have a little bit of that effort in your system, you know, at the NBA level to be able to really separate yourself, because so many of these other guys don't have that mindset that Keegan and Kris have. So unless you have a coach that really like requires it from everybody to play a certain way, they can get lost in the shuffle in certain ways where, like, they're always going to have some great games mixed in. And when you watch them, you're not going to have almost very many bad things to say from a coaching perspective. Yeah. But they both have such a high ceiling because they don't have that mindset of, like, let me go just get mine. And you gotta have to have a little bit of that to really assert yourself and work your way up the hierarchy of these teams. Because, you know, like Kyle, I steal out of Kyle's line, like, NBA, nobody cares. Like, you go from everybody looking out for you and doing everything to put you in position to be great because your talent demands it amongst your peers, and now everybody's talented. Yeah. And, you know, nobody cares about your growth or development necessarily, you know what I mean? So if you're not going to go out there and go snatch it, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to be stuck in a role when I think both of those guys are, you know, at their bottom level. Obviously, Keegan's already achieved it. Like, high-level rotational players that could be, like, you know, main cogs of winning teams, because not only are they talented, but they just play the right way for the right intentions. So I just continue to look at how those guys grow and mature in that way to kind of just realize, like, you know, realize who you are, man, and go out there and show everybody. Because if you don't, you can get stuck in a box very easily. Yeah,
for sure. That's probably my fault when it comes to the whole teamwork thing, right? Because that was a big part of when they were younger, especially with Keegan. You know, Kris was always one. He could handle the ball. So if we needed him to play point, he could play point. Keegan was all about putting the ball in the basket. And so sometimes to get him to, like, yo, you can make your teammates better, he's like, but he's not going to make that shot I am. I'm like, no, like, you got, you know. But I think they both have grown a ton. And I honestly feel, and we've talked about it too, just that year of separation with Keegan in the pros and Kris still here at Iowa. One, it allowed people to see them as individuals, but I think it allowed them as well to mature from the fact that they always were together, always played together, and you know, just throwing it out there. Hopefully they someday get to play together again. But, you know, I know we can't control that. But this time of year, let's get to the real reason you're here in Iowa right now. Okay. So I know this time of year, NBA starts, you know, you guys are kind of sitting at home, you know, not a whole lot of training going on, but you guys decided to come out here to a little basketball camp, a little clinic that we're putting on. So, you know, first I just want to tell the viewers, like, having two NBA guys in the gym with high schoolers and middle schoolers, like, the best thing in the world. I think, you know, as I was telling the parents yesterday, I was like, hey, you know, they're going to get a little bit of a taste of what these guys who are trying to make it into the NBA get, and you just should have saw the looks of the parents' faces. But yeah, you guys jumped at the opportunity to come out here, and so, you know, I want to say thank you. But how does it make you feel to be able to get out, you know, with the young kids and not some of the prima donnas in the NBA?
It's the best. It's the absolute best. I told him, like, when I work with kids at this level, this age group from 12 to 18 or whatever, and they're listening, and the kids, like last night, they're engaged, they're listening, they all have their eyes on us, like they have this look on their face, like they'll run through a wall if I tell them, like, that's what NBA players do. It's the best. Like, it makes me feel like I've made it, to be honest with you, because to impact and affect kids at this age, I think is the most important thing, at least in my life. That's what I feel like I was called to do. And so doing all this stuff with the NBA players allows me to speak life into these kids, because it's such an influential time in their life, right? They're going through all these changes socially, emotionally, physically, and they all play the game because they love the game and they want to go somewhere and they want to get better. They're not getting paid to do it. So it's honestly, it's the best. And obviously to do it for you, for Keegan and for Kris, because I believe in what they represent. And I believe in what the Murray name represents. And I told the kids this last night, like, you have Murray Elite on your jersey or your shirt or your bag or whatever. You represent what Keegan and Kris and Kenyon built. And the name that they built for themselves is not built on anything but all the things we talked about, right? All the intangible things. And we can go on and on about that stuff. But of course, you know, for me and for T as well, like, I would always jump at the opportunity to serve that purpose, to serve that cause, especially for kids at this age. So it's honestly, it's great. It's great.
Yeah. You can add to it too.
Yeah, I mean, he nailed it, and that typically happens. We spend a lot of time together, but that's just kind of how we're also wired, and like that's just the name of the game, man. Like I always tell people, I just want to leave the game in a better place than where I found it. You know what I mean? Because of what it's been afforded me to do in my life. You know what I mean? I don't come from much, so like to be able to live in all these different places and be around these different people and stuff, and just have life experience, getting a Notre Dame education, like that's not happening, you know, if I'm not hooping, you know what I mean? And that doesn't happen if there weren't people's shoulders I stood on to get there, you know, that really poured into me. Obviously fortunate to have some family members that played, but even just people, ancillary individuals around it that, like, you know, like he said, spoke life into me, took time into when I was a young knucklehead, you know, getting me to understand the value and just kind of like your work ethic and your approach to everything. You know, how you do one thing is how you do everything, you know. So I just always have, from a pretty relatively young age of getting on the other side of playing and going into the teaching of the game, just believe that like basketball is really just a vehicle to develop young men and to like develop kids into young men, you know. And if you pursue in your approach to the game and getting better, you know, has a certain feel to it, like you're going to maximize it at whatever level that you personally can. But whenever it's done, you're going to be successful in life. You know what I mean? Absolutely. So to your point, like we talked a couple of different times leading into this, and, you know, you're just so gracious and always have like thanked us. But like, you know, Kyle and I want to, we honestly can thank you equally, because just these opportunities are what charges us up. It's kind of, this is our payment, you know, and I still like my paycheck. But like, this is really like, this really gets me going. This charges me up, you know, and then not only the opportunity, but then you get in there with those kids and like they're locked in. You know what I mean? Like they're really locked in. We were doing some really hard stuff. It wasn't all glamorous, though it was very applicable to success on the court and stuff like that. And no bad body language, nobody sucking their teeth or like, what we doing, you know, whatever. Like we coaching them hard, we're getting after them and stuff, and there was no buckle in it at all, you know. And I just, when you get that back, like I don't care how good you are, I just care how hard you attempt to work and comprehend what we're bringing to the table. And that's, again, like that whenever you get an opportunity to do that, it just really hones you, you know, so that then when we go back with those NBA guys, you need to remember the simple reasons. Like you need to be reminded of why you're doing it, stripping away all the other, you know, things that come along with being an NBA player. And when you talk about that with these NBA guys, to Kyle's point, it resonates, you know, because it's easy to forget, because it is a job. It's a job, you know what I mean? So these things, they both help each way. Like working with the NBA guys gives us a stamp that makes these young guys want to listen. And working with these young guys reminds us of being in that spot though, where we can kind of ignite that with the NBA guys when they do come back. So it's great. You know, the opportunity is great, but it's even great for my continual development as a trainer and mentor. Yeah, no, I love it. You know, part of you know, the thought and the vision behind the Murray Elite rebrand was that, you know, the Iowa Barnstormers have been a great program, and there's a lot of good AAU programs in the state of Iowa, but I think it has to be a different level. We have to expose the kids to the reality of what they're trying to achieve, whether these kids are just trying to play varsity basketball or go to college. Like, we have to give them a little bit of dose reality sooner. And I think having you guys come in, obviously being NBA guys, it validates a lot of those things. And I know there's nobody else. I know that there's nobody else that has access to, you know, some of the resources we do. And that's why I think our program's going to take a big jump. We got a lot of work to do, and we got some things in the mix, but I think that's what I loved about
partnering with the coaches and the program is because the coaches are the drivers, but they recruit and have really, really good kids on every team. And that can go a long way when it comes to playing AAU basketball.
No doubt.
But I know you guys are, you're trainers and, representatives. And so I'm going to ask, this is more of kind of a fan question about the NBA, but is there anybody outside of Kris and Keegan, and it can be anybody, but is there anybody that you're excited to watch this year in the NBA? Maybe it's someone that came through and got drafted through priority or, somebody on another team. Is there anybody you're just interested in seeing what kind of season they have this year?
I think this season, there's so many storylines that I think we can kind of tap into and talk about right now. Just on a high level, to be honest with you, Anthony Edwards, for me, I don't know if you've seen the Netflix documentary.
I haven't watched all of it.
And then just following Ant-Man through his career, like there's something there.
Yeah.
That's just as a purist basketball guy who grew up with MJ and everything. There's something there that's really refreshing about him and his competitiveness and his competitive character. I love Steph though. It's insane to me. What he's
still doing at this level.
And he's still doing at this level. He's 37. I'm 37. And it's, and of course LeBron as well. So high level wise, those guys, man, it's impressive to me what LeBron and Steph continuously do and the level they play at. But Ant-Man for me is the one that jumps out because I would like to see that kind of competitive character be the face of the NBA. That MJ kind of, is it cockiness or is it just, he just really confidence? I don't know, but I'm enjoying his personality a lot. There's a whole host of other players. Obviously, we represent a lot of them, so I don't want to get into that because Keegan and Kris, of course, I'm locked in on, and Marcus Sasser and Baylor Shireman, Zach Edey, of course. A whole host of other guys, but those.
It's kind of funny how, you talk about how you pick or select an agent. But you guys tend to have guys that people just write off, and then all of a sudden, you said Zach, Zach's the one that just, he'll never play in the NBA, and he's too slow, and it's here he is.
Without question. Well, part of it is, we don't just recruit those guys, right? Those guys just there's a connection that happens because the guys that are overlooked are the guys that are often, like we were talking about with Kris Murray before, they play a certain way that sometimes gets underappreciated and overlooked. And we believe that we can tell that story better than everybody because we believe in that kind of stuff. And we believe in the character of and having great character leads to, and the great players are generally great people. And they generally have great people skills, great human skills. So there's just a connection that happens there. And I think also, history will tell you too that we often, as a company, do better with 3 and 4 year players in college. And that's, 3 or 4 year players in college are often 21, 22-year-olds who they've developed socially, emotionally. There's a maturity level there. They understand what they need. They understand what a good agent is. And, again, there's a connection. We connect and off we go.
All right, Torrian, you too. So who you looking forward to watching?
I'm right there with him. Ant-Man, he just has a energy about him that it's just like you said, I want the league to take on that approach. You know what I mean? In terms of just addressing the elephant in the room, man. I'm here to take y'all out. You know what I mean? And I can do it in a way that is loud, but likable. You know what I mean? He's got a great smile. You can tell he's a great teammate. He loves his guys. He went at KD hard last year, but then made sure to make it, this is my favorite player all time that I'm going up against. And him living that out in real time, authentically, I just think that's pretty dope in a time where social media makes everybody want to be cool and everything's not a big deal like that. He's nah, I want it. I want everything, and I'm coming for it. So I love that about him. And kind of like take it the next step there, like it makes me look at like a Memphis. Like obviously Zach being there is great. We also have Cam Spencer over there, you know, Brandon Clark, you know, we got some other guys on that team as a company. But like Ja was the blueprint for what Ant-Man's doing. He was the guy that was calling everything out as a young, brash guy that Memphis was supposed to stink.
Yeah.
They were rebuilding when they got him, and they immediately shot to the top of the standings. So seeing when them healthy, what they can be, I think is another storyline I'm looking closely at. I'm the biggest SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander fan you're gonna find for the longest time. So I just love that OKC makeup. I love that team. I love their camaraderie and how they approach everything. I love his quiet assassin approach to how he plays and just the like silky smoothness of his game. And I really like Dagnall and Presti. I mean, they're really, really impressive dudes. And, we've had some interactions with them from, players we had over there in the past couple of years. And I just like, again, alignment, that's that Spurs tree. That's top to bottom, GM, coach, obviously players and stars. I think they're hungry for it too. And they're coming for it. So like, that's another storyline that I'm following closely. And then to go to the flip side of it, watching what happens with Boston, you know what I mean? And obviously they look like a juggernaut, like they're ready to just run it right back. But like, Jaylen Brown had some stuff this summer. We're frustrated he didn't get the USA team. And then you got Tatum, who was on USA team but didn't play. Right. You know what I mean? Right. And like, there's a lot of things surrounding him where like, even coming off of a championship, like people are like doubting those guys for different reasons and are questioning things. So it's always cool to watch the champs try to run it back. You know what I mean? Because it's very, very difficult to do that. And you're seeing that from like Denver, how last year went for them and they lost, KCP, and they're trying to figure out how they piece that thing back together. So watching how Boston tries to approach, defending their title, I think will be another cool story that, I don't know a team that won a championship that got disrespected more than them. Everybody, they didn't play anybody. They heard this. They ran through the whole season. They were the best team, hands down, the entire way. There was no questions about it. But that's the world we live in now, where like we're looking to, as quickly as we build somebody up, we're looking to tear them down. So seeing how they, approach that, and in particular Tatum and Brown and their respective, things that they have to kind of answer the bell on. I'm excited to see that as well, because I love what they got going over there, what Stevens does, what Missoula does. Drew Holiday's one of my favorite players of all time. I mean, you can just go down the list of dudes on that team, Horford, that you just love to root for and stuff like that. So
it makes the NBA the best. Yeah, right? It really does. Like as a fan, there's just so many storylines. Wemby, and there's just so many directions you can answer that. But I think like the real answer is the guys that at least I'm involved with, that I'm like, how do I help them?
Right.
Yeah.
What can I do to be of service to them to help them play better? Mm-hmm. Keegan, Kris, and a bunch of other guys as well. And that requires so much attention and watching the games multiple times that like whenever we do get a chance to answer that question, I think that's why we both are like, man, like, every team has a different storyline that like you can really go deep on and be excited about, and that's what makes.
Well, I ask questions like that to fill time. Good question.
I just might need to ask some time, maybe. Go on that one a little more.
I mean, for me, I'm just really looking at seeing how the West plays out, because they're so good. I mean, you look at the Spurs, and this poll came out yesterday where they have like a 1% chance of making the playoffs, and you're talking about. Wemby they rated him the number 11 player in the league going into year 2. And they got a lot of young guys. You add Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul, so you have some veteran leadership.
Memphis was not existent last year.
Right, right. So the West, I mean, how many teams? I mean, and you can still throw in the Clippers, because when Kawhi comes back and do that kind of stuff. And, in Portland, even though, sometimes like, man, as a dad, I'm trying to figure out what they're doing, but I'm looking at the team and I'm like, they got like 10 guys.
They do.
That can play, including my kid.
Sure.
Of course. But yeah, they have 10 guys. And then you're looking at, all of a sudden Doug McDermott gets signed by Sacramento and you're like, okay, what are we doing here? Right. So they're just, the West is going to be, I like it because I know now when you probably watch a Western Conference game, it's going to be highly contested and highly competitive because you can't take a night off, because we saw in the Kings, they were, the 3 or 4 seed the year before. They lose just 2 games less or win 2 games less, and now they're in the play-in game the next year. Like, it's so topsy-turvy. And so that's kind of the storyline I'm looking at watching in the West, and obviously we'll be out for a few more games. So
Wild West, man.
Yeah, no doubt. But no, I want to thank you guys for coming on, man. This has been awesome, and obviously, we would not be where we are, the boys as players, us as a family, without what Priority has done for us as a family. When you talk about everybody, treating everybody like, it doesn't matter if they're a top 5 pick.
Yep.
Or they're unsigned free agent.
Yep.
The one thing I always see is like everybody is treated the exact same. They get the exact same thing. And
100%.
and I've seen it firsthand that doesn't happen with every agency. And I really feel like everything we do is a collaboration. Whether you guys are asking me how to talk to Kris and Keegan, or, I'm asking you like, hey, can you talk to Kris and Keegan? It goes both ways.
Michelle's in the background, they haven't told us that.
Yeah. Kris, did you know you were starting today? Yeah. Nope. I was like, I text Sophie. I'm like, did you know he was starting? She's like, no. Those two, man. It's just so funny. But I think as a dad, it's been really, really cool to see them mature. And it's funny because you're talking about talking to the kids. It's the same things that they've been working on, from that fundamental foundation base. And to be able to get parents and kids to understand, you can be a great athlete, but you got to know how to play the game. You got to be able to get open. You got to be able to dribble, pass, and shoot. And sometimes the best athletes, there's probably a lot of guys walking around that should be playing in the league, but for one reason or another, whether it's IQ, foundational skill level, those kind of things, they're not there. So I think it's important that everybody understand that, foundational fundamentals, it's where it's at. Is everybody going to be 6'8", 6'9"? No, but the reality is, to play at a high level, you have to have that. And so it's really nice to see you guys do that with these.
Well, we appreciate it. We appreciate the opportunity. We appreciate coming on here, and we appreciate you and the Murray family, of course, for everything you guys stand for. And that's what I really mean, that there's a lot of alignment there. And I'm sure over the years it wasn't easy, but now you're able to enjoy the fruits of your labor. And of course, can't forget about McKenna, the rock star of the family.
Oh gosh,
she's she's on the fast track herself. But anytime we can be of service to that cause and to you guys and to help you guys, it is a partnership.
Yeah,
helping you guys and helping Keegan and Kris every single day is a partnership. So there's a lot of collaboration that happens, and we're just, as Torrian mentioned before, we're just happy to work with people who think the same we do. Yeah, and leave this game in a better place.
I appreciate that. Yeah, you guys might have to deal with McKenna in a couple summers if she gets that internship with you guys. So
bring on out.
Yeah, no doubt. Well,
she's got it, by the way. She got it.
Oh yeah. She'll make it hard for you not to say yes. I love her to death, and so it's been tough. I mean, not tough, but it's just different not having her in the house, and so I try to text her every day, which I missed a couple of days, so I got to triple up today. Because she was like, "Yeah, Dad, you forgot to." I send her daily affirmations or prayers, just because I know with her going so far away and all of her friends here. But the best thing about it is, out of all the kids, she's the one that I knew would do that. Would go away from home and and not be so close to the nest. Now she misses it, but. Yeah, she's a different breed.
Yeah,
and she's a lot like me, which Michelle says. So maybe that's why we're so connected. But thank you, fellas. I really appreciate you guys coming on today. So
thank you, man.